The unexpected failure of Israeli intelligence. Thousands of rockets launched simultaneously with a drone attack against surveillance installations. An initial force of 400 people followed by 100 additional fighters, all penetrating at the same time at 29 different points on the Gaza border with Israel. Motorized paragliding units overflew the defenses, and assault crews in boats attempted to land on the beaches. All of this occurred during Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7, 2023. Since that day, one question has been repeated incessantly. Why did Israeli intelligence, despite its renowned global reputation, fail to anticipate this attack? In this video, we will explore the factors behind this intelligence failure, addressing issues from dependence on technology to the underestimation of Hamas. This analysis is carried out completely impartially, without political biases, focusing on the deficiencies of the Israeli intelligence agencies in a highly complex context. The first thing to clarify is something evident. Hamas's attack was unprecedented in its organization, scale, and violence. By no means was it improvised or spontaneous. On the contrary, it was a truly planned operation several months in advance. Before moving on to anything else, we must understand who Israeli intelligence is. Mossad is always mentioned, but that is only one part. Israeli intelligence is mainly divided into three agencies: Mossad, Amman, and Shin Bet. Officially known as the Institute of Intelligence and Special Operations, Mossad is responsible for the strategic collection of intelligence abroad, conducting covert operations for Israel's national security. In addition, Mossad carries out secret diplomatic activities. Its role on the international stage is similar to that of a chess player who not only moves pieces on the board but also anticipates and counters the strategies of its adversaries. Amman is an acronym for Agaf Ha-Madin, which means Intelligence Section, and it is the Military Intelligence Directorate of the Israel Defense Forces. Amman is responsible for military intelligence gathering, which implies not only monitoring the activities of other armies and insurgent groups but also evaluating and predicting their intentions and capabilities. The agency provides the necessary information for Israel to make operational and strategic decisions, helping to formulate Israel's defense policy and preparing for possible future conflicts. Shin Bet, or Shabak, the General Security Service of Israel, also known as Shin Bet, is an agency that operates mainly within Israel's borders. Its main focus is internal security and counter-espionage. Shin Bet works closely with the police, the defense forces, and other governmental entities to protect Israeli citizens and interests. Now, after understanding what Israeli intelligence is, how it is divided, and what its tasks are, it is elementary to understand that these three agencies share a common goal: to ensure and preserve the security of the State of Israel and its citizens against a wide range of threats both inside and outside its borders. Therefore, logic tells us that all three agencies are jointly responsible for the attack carried out by Hamas on October 7th. And do not just take my word for it. They themselves acknowledged it. We failed in our most important mission, and as the head of the Military Intelligence Directorate, I take full responsibility for the failure under my command. We did not alert about this terrorist attack launched by Hamas, said Aharon Haliva, leader of the Amman agency. I must be very clear that it is a shared responsibility among several intelligence agencies, because there is a multitude of videos and newspaper headlines that say the blame was solely Mossad's, and it is a big mistake to simplify it that way to one agency. In reality, it is a failure of several individuals and decision-makers from intelligence agencies, military leaders, border commanders, politicians, etc. However, considering this context, we must understand that Israel possibly has the most extensive and well-funded intelligence services in the Middle East. For decades, these have been considered among the best in the world, managing to infiltrate informants and secret agents into various insurgent groups in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, and other countries. The reputation of Mossad alone is legendary, and you can ask true intelligence experts and recount their successful missions, or at least those that are known. Dozens of specialists around the world have attempted to find answers to the failure of Israeli intelligence. However, beyond different opinions, almost everyone agrees that it was not just one factor but several. So let's analyze them one by one. Dependence on military technology. The first of these is Israel's excessive reliance on its military technology, which is excellent, don't get me wrong, but the Israeli Defense Forces relied too heavily on their border system with Gaza, the so-called Iron Wall, about 65 kilometers long. Despite its name, this is not an imposing metal or iron barrier but a wall that relies on technology to keep threats at bay. The Iron Wall is filled with radars and sensors capable of detecting all kinds of breaches, supposedly even underground ones. At the same time, this intelligent border barrier has cameras, robots, remote-controlled machine guns, and aerial satellites. Everything is monitored in real time around the clock, all year long. But the Iron Wall had a very obvious and exposed weak point: its observation towers and communication infrastructure, usually also in towers. These were the backbone of this surveillance system, and Hamas dealt with them in a simple and practical way with a drone attack. When these destroyed the towers, the system was completely blinded, unable to transmit or receive signals. Then, the Iron Wall became just a simple wall, and like any wall, it can be knocked down. The militants also used explosives to blow up sections of the barrier, and fighters on motorcycles went through the gaps. Later, bulldozers did the rest, leaving enough space for larger vehicles to pass through. Iron Dome overwhelmed. However, this was not the only defense system that Israel overestimated. The Iron Dome, its mobile air defense system, has proven to be incredibly effective in shooting down dozens of rockets with a success rate of over 90%. But it was completely overwhelmed when Hamas attacked with thousands of rockets and projectiles of all kinds. According to Israeli government estimates, on October 7, 2023, Hamas launched around 1,400 rockets and projectiles, evidencing the system's saturation when faced with such a high volume of simultaneous threats. Forgetting traditional espionage. In recent years, Israeli intelligence has overly focused on electronic espionage technology to the detriment of their human informants. Hamas exploited this weakness by eliminating technology from their leaders and preferring face-to-face communications. They deceived Israel by simulating electronic communications that suggested they were not planning military attacks against Israeli forces. Underestimating the enemy. Underestimating the enemy is an age-old mistake that has cost many wars throughout history. Israeli leaders seem to have wrongly assumed that Hamas, although hostile to Israel, could not launch a large-scale attack. This is partly due to Hamas's history, which is often a good way to judge an organization's goals and capabilities. Hamas has repeatedly used rockets and missiles to attack Israel, but the salvos have been more modest in size. Hamas has never carried out a massive infiltration into Israel from Gaza, but on October 7, they sent thousands of fighters. Moreover, although Hamas has long been trying to attack Israel from Gaza, some of the methods used, such as the 2018 Kite War, suggested limited capabilities at best. Israeli defensive systems like the Iron Dome seemed very effective, while the intelligent border barrier, or Iron Wall, protected Israel from infiltration. This underestimation was not only reflected in Hamas's capabilities but also in their ideological commitment. Rehearsals of the attack. Israel may have had knowledge that Hamas members were conducting training exercises and using a fake Israeli settlement for this purpose, thanks to their electronic surveillance capabilities and the use of satellite images. However, it is possible that Israeli intelligence dismissed these activities as mere propaganda exercises without recognizing the true intention behind them. This also highlights a case where Israel underestimated its adversary. While this lack of respect for their enemy and excessive reliance on technology were the two central causes of Israeli intelligence's failure, they were not the only ones. There was a long series of human errors of greater or lesser importance that ultimately contributed to the success of the enemy assault. Distracted politicians and intelligence services. Another important aspect was internal politics. Undoubtedly, the Israeli government shifted its focus away from Gaza and the threat posed by Hamas. It was expected that the economic concessions offered months earlier by Israel would satisfy both Gaza residents and Hamas members, reflecting a serious error in understanding the social situation and their true intentions. Moreover, the Israeli government and intelligence services had their attention focused on the settlements in the West Bank and the border with Lebanon, which led to relocating many security forces from Gaza to that region in the West Bank and northern Israel. And I'm talking about many soldiers and support forces. This is extremely important to highlight because the intelligence services anticipated that probable threats would come from the north of Israel, when they were actually in the south. Many specialists have called Israel's intelligence response a lack of imagination, referring to the inability not only to prevent such an attack but even to imagine it and prepare a series of measures for this hypothetical case. The same criticism was leveled at the United States after the 9/11 attack. In addition to Israeli intelligence, other intelligence services also faced difficulties in anticipating this threat, as admitted by the US authorities themselves. Another piece of information is that the Egyptian intelligence minister warned Israel about a possible Hamas attack 10 days before it happened. Benjamin Netanyahu appeared indifferent, claiming that Israeli forces were focused on the West Bank, while Israeli officials assured that the Gaza border was completely secure. However, Netanyahu's office denied having received such a warning from Egypt, labeling any claims to the contrary as false. After the attack, there was speculation that Israeli intelligence services had prior knowledge of what would happen and chose not to act, seeking a pretext to justify an offensive in Gaza and airstrikes. However, it must be clear that this theory lacks concrete support. On the one hand, it would be both cruel to their own citizens and extremely risky for a prime minister already under critical fire like Benjamin Netanyahu. On the other hand, the damage to Israel's image as a military power due to its inability to defend itself from such a large-scale attack is profound and risky, potentially triggering serious consequences like an armed conflict with Iran, a situation most in Israel would likely prefer to avoid. Though it is equally illogical to think that Israel had no information about the attack, there is evidence that there were prior signals. Hamas was even seen conducting military exercises in plain sight. Nevertheless, sometimes intelligence can be too vague or ambiguous to take effective preventive actions. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with only a few pieces. It is impossible to see the whole picture. This seems to be what happened to Israel on this occasion, but this error cost the lives of more than 1,400 Israelis and the kidnapping of more than 220 people. Although Israeli officials have announced the start of a thorough investigation into the failures of their intelligence system, Israel is currently facing more immediate challenges. The statements of the country's main military spokesman, Vice Admiral Daniel Hagari, are clear and concise. First we fight, then we investigate. It is to be expected that the full extent and details of the failures in Israeli intelligence and defense will not come to light for several months or even several years after this conflict. In summary, the recent surprise attack by Hamas against Israel revealed a series of failures in Israeli intelligence and defense, including excessive reliance on military technology, lack of human intelligence, underestimation of the enemy, and diverted political attention. These deficiencies led to a critical and costly situation in terms of lives and national security. Despite ongoing investigations, it is clear that Israel faces immediate challenges and the need for reforms in its intelligence and defense systems. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click on this video that is appearing on your screen right now.